Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Khatibi podcast. And today's guest, we have Amayra Morales, an expert in Ayurvedic health and wellness. And after experiencing severe burnout and inadequate traditional medical help, Amayra turned to Ayurveda in India, where she found effective solutions for her health challenges. And now, as a certified Ayurvedic practitioner, Amayra specializes in helping women manage rosacea and achieve overall wellness through holistic methods. We will be getting into all of that today, but before we do, please tell us a little bit more about your story and how you ended up getting into Ayurveda.
Well, thank you so much, Kat. I'm super excited to be here and connect with you. And just hope that this kind of resonates with your audience. So I was in the corporate world for about 10 years until I burnt out and ended up in hospital. And I don't think there's a bigger wake-up call than staring at the ceiling of the hospital room, realizing like, what on earth have I just gotten myself into, you know? So, and that's kind of when I realized that I had no one to blame but myself, because I had kind of put myself in this situation, just pushing my body to its absolute limit, working really hard, long hours, and just no way of looking after myself. So that was a really big wake-up call. And then after I was released from hospital, I ended up going from kind of specialist to specialist, trying to work out what was actually happening or what was the root cause of what was happening. And I just wasn't getting the answers that I wanted to. So then I decided that my time in the corporate world was over, and I ended up going to India because I had this kind of big desire to do my yoga teacher training. And once I had done my yoga teacher training, I ended up getting sick. And then through a series of fortunate events, I ended up at an Ayurveda clinic. And that's kind of where the beginning of the end was for me, because through Ayurveda, I actually learned how out of balance I was in kind of all aspects of my life. And it's no wonder how I got to where I was. So then I decided to do a detox program with my Ayurvedic doctor, and I just felt amazing. I had so much energy, my skin cleared up, I was digesting food properly, and I just thought, wow, like there is something magical about this medicine. So then I went on to study Ayurveda, and not actually realizing that I wanted to become a health coach. I just did it for my own knowledge. And then I started to realize that other people around me were also having digestive issues, dry skin, and irregular bowel movements, and all these other things. So then that's kind of when the little light bulb went off, and that's how I became an accidental Ayurveda health coach.
Wow, so that's quite a story. And I think a lot of us have similar stories when we get into our health journeys of like something happens and we have to like rearrange everything. And we usually find some sort of traditional medicine or functional type approach to our health. So could you give us a little bit on like just the basics of what Ayurveda is?
Yeah, so I think Ayurveda is is like one of the most sophisticated and powerful body-mind health systems in the world that dates back to ancient India. So we're talking about 5,000 years ago. And I love Ayurveda because it looks at an individual from a bio-individuality point of view. So this just simply means that what works for me, Kat, may not necessarily work for you, and what works for you may not necessarily work for your next door neighbor. So it really tailors a specific healing modality to your specific body constitution, which is what we call the doshas in Ayurveda. So we've got 3 doshas, which is Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And Vata is dominated by the air qualities. I'm just going to make it super simple for your audience. And then Pitta is the fire energy, and then Kapha is the earth energy. So when you actually go and have a consultation with an Ayurvedic practitioner, they work out which one out of those is out of balance. So maybe air is like anxiety, like inability to sleep really well, not digesting food properly, and fire is maybe too much heat in the body, so acne, rosacea, gastritis, or any of those kind of things. And then Kapha is too much earth energy. So when you become stagnant, so there's no motivation, maybe you've got a sluggish digestive system, so there's just stagnation in the body. So we work out which one you're out of balance and then bring you back into balance through diet, through lifestyle modifications, through movement, so those kind of practices.
And why does Ayurveda place such a focus on the gut to heal the skin?
Yeah, it's super interesting. So 5,000 years ago, Ayurveda was banging on about this. And only in the last, 15 years in modern medicine, we're like, wow, there's a connection between the gut and the skin and then the gut and the brain. So it's super interesting. So most diseases in Ayurveda, the root cause is digestion. So that's where kind of all disease begins. So sometimes when we don't really listen to our bodies and we just keep pushing it on, and then the things just kind of accumulate. So this is why Ayurveda is like, it's really important that we are digesting food properly, that we're having regular bowel movements, and the detoxification process of the body is really is good, because otherwise you're just having stagnation in the body. So that's why it's really good for us to have bowel movement every day, to sweat every day, to sleep, so to do all these detoxification processes.
Yeah, I actually heard a few doctors saying now that because of all the pollution, all the chemicals that we're being exposed to, that we have to, it's not optional to do sauna, sweating at least 2 to 3 times a week, which is like, nobody really talks about this, but we're bombarded with all these things constantly. And if you're not sweating them out, if you're indoors all day with your little air conditioning, it's just accumulating.
Exactly. So yeah, that's why when I did my detox program in India, it was a lot about that, and I had no idea the importance of detoxification. And you think about like the pollutants, like it's in our water, it's in our food, it's in our environment. So it's really difficult for us to kind of move away from that. But there are certainly Ayurvedic practices that you can do to kind of get rid of toxins in the body. And one way that that you've got toxins in the body, if your people are interested, if you have a kind of a white coating in your tongue when you wake up in the morning. So that's one of the clear signs. You're feeling a bit sluggish more than usual. That means that you've got stagnation in the body. So yeah, there is certainly clear indicators.
Yes, I totally know about that. I've always had a white tongue. Oops. Anyways, so tell us a little bit more about the doshas, because I've always tried to figure out mine. So I'm always like, maybe I'm pitta because I used to get like acne, but then I'm like, I have trouble losing weight, so maybe that's more like the earth one. So I'm kind of like confused on that. So how do we really figure out which one we are, or if we're a combination?
Yeah. So you're never just one dosha. I want to be super clear with people who might, when I go through them, they might be like, oh, but I'm a bit of this and I'm a bit of that. So we are the 3 doshas, just in varying amounts. So you've got to work out the one that is in excess, So first of all, we've got vata. So some of your audiences, members might associate with this one because we live in a very vata world, So vata, when you are in balance. So first of all, I guess I'm going to make it super simple. I'm just going to call this the wind energy. So when we think about the wind, what kind of characteristics come to mind?
Go with the flow. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So when we think about the wind, I'm sure everybody has been in a kind of a windy day. So the wind is dry, it's cold, it's mobile, it's rough, and it's very light. So when we bring this into terms, this can come up as kind of anxiety, insomnia, gas and bloating, like literally too much air in the colon, constipation, dryness. So that's kind of when a vata person is out of balance. And when we think about body structure, we're generally thinking like Victoria's Secret, like straight up and down kind of thing. They they tend to be kind of like the bones protruding. And one way to find out is if you have a look at your wrist, for example, and wrap your hand around it, and are your fingertips kind of touching? They're just kind of overlapping, or they're not touching at all. So if you are Vata, generally there's quite a big overlap. So like I'm Vata through and through, so I can just see like my structure of my wrist is definitely like where my thumb and my ring finger is overlapping. No? So that's one way to find out. No? And when we talk about in the terms of skin, their skin can generally be a little bit thin, a little bit fine, a little bit delicate, and quite dry, and they tend to have small pores. So that's kind of Vata in a kind of shortcut. Does that kind of resonate with you?
I don't know, because I have small pores, dry
Yeah.
skin, but
Yep.
then sometimes I'll get acne.
Okay, so Vata Pitta. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So that's, So the second dosha is Pitta, as you mentioned. So this is characterized by fire. But just to make it super simple, I'm just going to call it the fire energy. And when you think about the fire, Cat, like what comes to mind?
Itching?
Yeah, like when you think about like a fire, I guess it can give you, like, if you're too close to the fire, definitely it would give
Itching,
you some.
sweating, I don't know.
Yeah, so fire is hot, it's sharp, it's powerful, it's fiery, and it's transformative. So this can show up in the body, like when you are in balance, you can have like great drive. We look at leaders of the world, think about them, they've got a lot of pitta energy. They're more prone to stress as well, because there's just too much fire, because they want to do absolutely everything. So that was me when I was in the corporate world. I was just wanted to do everything at once. And it can also show up as inflammation. So anything that ends with an itis, as we know, is inflammation. So ulcerative colitis, gastritis, dermatitis are all cases of too much heat in the body. And generally you feel quite warm, hot wise, so like body temperature. Like I know when I was traveling around Southeast Asia with my boyfriend, I just didn't want the aircon on and he needed to have it on. So clearly I am Vata and he's Pitta. So when we think about it from the skin perspective, Pittas tend to have a really lovely, like kind of rosy complexion. They have a few freckles, and they tend to have a little bit on the sensitive skin. But when Pitta people are out of balance, they tend to have oily skin, acne, so inflamed skin. So rosacea, this is the major group that I work with. They get easily sunburned. Dermatitis is another one, and sometimes often hives. So that's kind of like the Pitta in a snapshot. So you relate to some of those as well, yeah?
I mean, at different points in my life, like I feel like you change a lot. There's some point, I've never been oily, so I can't relate to that at all. But sensitive sometimes. I had rosacea once. Like a really, like it came on very quickly.
Yeah.
And I eventually figured out it was because I was taking a progesterone cream and I was reacting to the progesterone.
Interesting.
So it caused hives, and then since I kept putting it on and putting on, eventually the hives progress to rosacea on the cheeks and the face.
Yeah, but I'm glad you were able to get to kind of the root cause of it. Sometimes women with rosacea, they just keep banging their head against the wall because nothing seems to work. So yeah, that's a little bit of Pitta, and then the last one is Kapha, which is like the earth energy. So when you think about the earth, like when you go outside and look at the earth, like what kind of characteristics come to mind?
Calm, grounded.
Yeah, perfect. So the earth is damp, it's cold, like superficially on the outside. I guess it's warm if the sun hits it, but if you keep digging your head under it, it's got this dampness, this coldness to it. It's also dense and it's also soft, so this can show up in the body as, so Kapha people tend to be really nourished. You look at them, they're like, their skin is so plump, there's something about them, but when it also goes out of balance, they can feel a little stagnant, as I mentioned, like stagnant not just in the body wise, but stagnant in the mind. So they might just be in this routine where they go to the same restaurant every Friday, order the same meal, and then have the same friends. So there's a little bit of like, they're resistant to change. So that's a little bit of the Kapha dosha. But they do have really glowing skin because they're so nourished. The skin is quite thick. Generally, it's very like clear complexion, and they've got kind of a soft tone to it. No? Now, when kapha is out of balance, they tend to be really oily, so excess oil with large pores, and they tend to have blackheads or whiteheads because of the stagnation in the skin, and just general congestion of the skin. So that's a little bit of kapha. No? And when we look at body structure, generally kapha tend to be, because of the nourishment, they tend to be a bit on the bigger side. No? So whereas pitta, they're more muscular. No, they can go to the gym for like 45 minutes and you're already like, they're like already feeling like pumped. And then vatas, very difficult to gain weight, very difficult to put on muscle.
Okay. So, what common combinations do you find when people are out of balance with their doshas?
Yeah, definitely combination skin. So you can have like an oily T-zone and then like dry cheeks. That's the one that I kind of get, because rosacea normally starts off on the cheeks and it's very dry, kind of scaly skin. And then sometimes there is that combination of acne rosacea. So there is excess oil, generally, as I mentioned, on the T-zone. So not only is it like dryness on the cheeks, but it's also inflammation and stagnation. So it's like the triple whammy.
And can you give us some skincare tips for each of the doshas?
Yeah, so because vatas, as I mentioned, they're characterized by the wind energy. Generally, one of the major things that they come across is excessively dry skin. No, so there's no amount of oil that they can put on the skin. It just like your skin just absorbs everything. So for vatas, I generally recommend very nourishing practices. So even like stay away from kind of those foamy cleansers. What I normally get my clients to do is an oil cleanse. So this just involves, like a good oil for vatas would be like almond oil, for example. So you can infuse some rose petals in there, leave it for about 2 weeks, and then strain the roses out, and then you've got this beautiful oil cleanser. No? So you just put that instead of soap, as I mentioned, and then you're just gently wiping it off with a warm towel kind of thing. So nourishment for vatas is key. So lots of oils, really thick moisturizers, especially if you are a vata and it's December and you're living in Boston. No? So cold, dry, windy, so your skin needs nourishment. And then for my pitta people, I normally recommend really cooling things for their skin, generally because there is a lot of inflammation. So some of the things that I've been doing with my clients is put in just like aloe vera gel as just like a mask, so not to go for these like clay masks or anything like that. So you want something super cooling, even coconut oil, although sometimes it can be quite clogging for the pores, so you've just got to play around with it as well. So coconut oil or coconut oil based skincare products are really great. As I mentioned, aloe vera is also amazing, and rose water has the properties of being quite cooling for the skin and nourishment for pittas. And then for my kapha people, I actually, because they've got excess and they've got stagnation in the skin, so they are the ones that can actually use the foamy cleansers, and really light moisturizers, so nothing too thick. So I wouldn't really recommend oils for my kapha clients. I would mainly recommend really light moisturizers.
Okay, so I think I'm doing a pretty good job then, because I use jojoba oil.
Yeah, perfect.
As my first cleanser, and then I'll use warm washcloths to clean it off, and I use an aloe based moisturizer.
Yeah,
That's
perfect.
it. And I
Yeah, give
make
rose water a go. Yeah, give rose water a go, before you put on your moisturizers. So you've cleansed, you put your rose water, and then you put your moisturizer. I find that that's been really, really helpful for me, because I've still got a little bit of rosacea, not anywhere near where it was in 2018, but I do, like when emotions heighten for me, I notice that kind of appears in my skin. When stress levels are increased, I also notice that. So I find that the rose water or even the aloe vera or like a turmeric mask really works for me as well, with yogurt, turmeric and honey.
So I make all of my skincare products
Me too.
from scratch, because I'm so terrified of all the junk that's in everything now. I feel like it's on purpose. So what are some tips that you have on avoiding the toxins that are in everything?
So one of the first things is one of the things that I really teach my clients is to get acquainted with what the ingredients are. No? So if you can't pronounce it and if they have numbers on them, more than likely that that there is something that you don't know. So if you don't know how to pronounce it or you don't know what they are, then I don't know, have a Google, have a play around and see what comes up. More than likely it is quite toxic for the skin. No? So one of the things that really, really get to me, and I think a lot of, like the other day I was on a bus and I just like, there was this woman in front of me and she had this really strong perfume, like 3 bus stops down, and I had to get out because I couldn't deal with it. No, so we're used to hearing like parabens and emulsifiers and preservatives and all of that kind of stuff. No? So for me, like one of the biggest like pet peeves is fragrance, no, and especially synthetic fragrances, no. So especially for people who already have quite sensitive skin, it's very harsh for the skin. Now, our skin doesn't actually recognize scent, no. It has like no beneficial purpose in for the skin at all, no. It's more like a sensory experience, and like oh, the roses, the lavender, no, I don't know, they make you probably feel like you're running through a lavender field or something, no. But fragrance for me is a huge one, no. So obviously have a look at your ingredients and see if it has any, you know, synthetic fragrance. Now it's never going to say, hey, this product has synthetic fragrances. It's just going to have like a fragrance kind of thing, no. So there's a trick to it as well that they use, no. So one single fragrance, for example, can be made of 900 different chemicals, you know, which we are known that, you know, they're cancer causing. So that's a really important thing. You know? And I know a lot of my clients who used to use lavender like moisturizer for their kids, you know, until I'm like, no, you cannot be using that. You just need to be using oil, you know. So, and as I mentioned, you know, some companies are very tricky with the way that they do that. You know? So just make sure that products are unscented or fragrance free, but even sometimes I'm noticing fragrance free can be a little bit dodgy as well. So we need to look out for that. No, so it's really about informing yourself, you know, being very like educating yourself on the products that are on there. So fragrance for me is a big no-no. So that's one of them. And then PEGs, which is another one, which is petroleum-based compounds. So it should have PEGS on the back, no? And, you know, I'm actually noticing a lot of people on TikTok and Instagram, like put on petroleum-based products on their skin. And I am like, do you realize, like, you cannot be giving that advice, especially for somebody who already has congested skin. You're just clogging up the pores even further. You know? So that's an ick factor. So definitely watch out for that. And then colorings is another one. No? So your skin doesn't actually recognize color. Again, it's a very visual experience, you know, purple, lavender, pink, rose and stuff. No? It's just a trick from the beauty industry that they use. No? So just always look for really natural products. No? Those are the 3 that, I normally look out for. No? So if anything has, like, for example, CI1095, then you know that it is not a natural color. No? So just be mindful of that.
Yeah, a funny thing that I heard recently was the reason why toothpaste has mint or peppermint in it was because when they first marketed toothpaste, people said, I don't feel anything. So they put an irritant, which was the peppermint or the mint oil, into the toothpaste so that it would tingle because it's irritating you. And people were like, now it's doing something. So most of the things that are in there are just to get people to buy it. They have no purpose. And in fact, they can be irritants or worse for us.
Absolutely. No, and this is why I love Ayurveda so much, because I mean, I'm sure that your audience are familiar with this blue liquid that is like a mouthwash. I won't say the name, but you can just use coconut oil, no? And there's another company in the States called Guru Nanda, which they do like a mint-infused coconut oil for mouthwash, no? So there's definitely alternatives out there. It's just kind of reprogramming. Like I grew up using all these products. No, it wasn't until like I started learning and educating myself, and I'm like, oh my God, even like deodorants, no? Like I used to use, like 13 years old, I used to be in the locker room, like just spraying stuff everywhere. Now. But now I'm like, so once you know, it's very difficult to unknow.
Yeah. So are there any brands that you would recommend for safer products, for anything, for skincare, for any type of products that you like?
Yeah, so so just for a bit of context, I actually live in Peru, the Sacred Valley. So I don't have access to Amazon or
Okay.
ordering those things. So, but when I do guide my clients, like for example, herbs, I love Banyan Botanicals. So you can get herb products there. You can get toothpaste, moisturizers, mouthwash. So you can get all Ayurvedic, very clean products there. Guru Nanda, which is another one, which is another Ayurvedic. So they sell a tongue scraper, which is really, really useful when we're looking at the detoxification process of the body. So those are the two brands that I normally get my clients to go towards.
Okay, excellent. So mainly you work with women with rosacea.
Mm-hmm.
So like what are the top causes, like the root causes that you find for rosacea?
It's super interesting, no? Because like I'm also part of rosacea groups on Facebook, and everybody seems to be so concerned with just the topical stuff, like what cleanser can I use, what moisturizer. And in Ayurveda, we actually don't believe that rosacea is a topical issue. It's a manifestation of something deeper within. So again, I will go back to digestion being the root cause of it. So there is obviously excess inflammation in the body, or there can be like toxins in the body. So we need to really look at that. So one way that we look at that is like, okay, so let's modify your diet to have like a cooling kind of diet. So but definitely it's an inflammatory diet alongside with a high histamine diet. So we need to cool the body down. We need to kind of look at also detoxifying process. Stress is another huge one. No, we underestimate exactly, people like are living just kind of really chaotic lives, and they don't realize that the stress is a huge component of it. And then thirdly, I would say that really harsh skincare products. So just with too many toxins and just toxic products.
Yeah, I want to say one thing about stress because it just made me think about it. When you're stressed, you cannot digest. So then everything kind of goes downhill. There was a time where I thought I was lactose intolerant because I would only have like a milkshake or something before my math test. And
Yep.
I'm thinking back on it, of course I'm not going to, it's hard to digest and I'm under extreme stress because I suck at math.
Yep.
Those things happen. So people need to like pay attention to like your stress does affect your digestion. I think when you're stressed out, you need to eat so carefully during that period of time so that you can digest the food and like not be doing other things, like just focus on eating, just focus on relaxing while you're eating, and people don't think about these things.
Absolutely. And when I do my initial consultations with my clients, I'm like, date back, tell me like when your rosacea started. And normally I would say like 80% of the time, it was a buildup of like emotional stress, work related, ending a relationship, that they realized that like, okay, because rosacea is not something that happens overnight. It's not like, okay, I woke up this morning and why is my face all flushed? It's like kind of an accumulation of things. So if you are not processing emotions or events, or if there's a stressful situation, so usually those kind of accumulate and they surface somewhere on the body. For me, it was definitely rosacea. So yeah, stress is a huge component of a lot of things that we're going through, not just rosacea. There's a lot of things that we can date back to stressful situations.
Mm-hmm. So if anyone is out there and they're experiencing rosacea, is there anything that they can start today before they go and talk to you?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is definitely like just give it's finding out like when. So be a detective. So when did your rosacea start? And then have a look at events that happened around there. If you cannot think of any events that happened around there, then it's probably not stress induced. So it's more maybe diet. So then let's have a look at your diet. And then sometimes I get my clients who are like vegan, who they think they're having a very healthy diet. They're like, no, but I'm a vegan and I'm eating this and plant-based or whatever. And it's like, okay, let's have a look. Let's peel the layers back. All right, I don't know if Oreo is the best option. I know it's vegan, and I know that, lentil patties or whatever, fake meat is out. So a lot of it is processed. So we need to peel back on the process and just go for like good, clean, organic, meals. No, and I don't mean you have to cook every single meal every single day. No, so cook a big batch of like, I don't know, lentils and veggie curry for the next 2 days. So just peel back on all the processed foods. I think that's a huge one as well. No, so obviously the big ones would be, cutting out dairy, cutting out gluten, cutting out sugar and alcohol and coffee. So they're all stimulants and irritant for the body. So if you're telling me like, okay, they still isn't making a difference, so then we need to look deeper. So some things that are very common associated with rosacea is H. pylori, for example. Candida is another one, so bacterial overgrowth, so SIBO or SIFO, so there's fungus in the body. So what I normally get my clients to do, if nothing has been working, then I get them to go and have a GI mapping test through a company in the US, and then they come up and they say, okay, so your levels of, for example, heavy metals is very high, so we need to look at that. And then you've also got, I don't know, candida, so we also need to address that as well. So, but the lowest hanging fruits for me would be like follow a non-processed, low inflammatory diet, plant-based preferably. I'm not saying I am plant-based, but that's kind of the low hanging fruits.
Tell us some tips for this low inflammatory diet. What do we eat? What do we not?
Yeah, so we need to have what do we call a pitta pacifying diet. So look at leafy green vegetables. They're very cooling. I noticed a lot of my clients are severely dehydrated. I read a study the other day that something like 70% of Americans are severely dehydrated, and one way you can find out is stick your tongue out in front of the mirror. If you've got any cracks on it, you are severely dehydrated. If your skin is dry, then you're probably dehydrated as well. Now, if you tell me, but Amayra, I drink 5 liters of water a day, and I'm like, okay, well, how many times are you going to the bathroom? Pretty much straight after each glass of water. Then the water is just going through you, and it's not actually nourishing the cells and the organs. So what you can do is you can have what we call in Ayurveda Gatorade, which is coconut water, preferably like with no sugar added. You can add a pinch of salt and a squeeze of lime. It's very detoxifying and it's going to hydrate. So if you tell me like, I have 5 liters of water a day, I'm going to say, okay, it's probably excessive. Also think about having maybe 2 liters of water and then 3 cups of this Ayurvedic Gatorade. Now, if you tell me I also have coffee, now something that we need to watch out for is that if you have 1 cup of coffee, you need to have about 5 glasses of water to kind of rebalance the hydration, because coffee in essence is very drying. So so you need to get rid of all the stimulants. So leafy green vegetables, coconut water, aloe vera. So you can have, like, one thing that I notice with my clients is there's a lot of liver issues. So really cooling down the liver. So aloe vera is definitely great for that. So kind of tofu is also really good. So all the cooling kind of foods. So no spicy food, no sugar, no alcohol. So try and cut out some of those. It's an amazing like what the body does with just maybe like 5 or 7 days of just a cooling diet. And there's definitely cooling herbs that you can have from an Ayurvedic perspective. You can have neem, for example. You can start adding turmeric to your food or your teas or anything like that.
Yeah, so that makes me happy, because there's this one drink that I'll have whenever I feel dehydrated. It's coconut water with aloe vera in it.
Mm-hmm.
And amazing.
Yeah. So the salt, so if you tell me, like, as I mentioned, so what the salt is doing, it's actually holding on to the water, and then the lemon is actually very detoxifying, and then the coconut water is hydrating. So I think by all means you can definitely add some aloe vera in there. Great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's also like a mineral salt with potassium and all that stuff that I squeeze into. It's disgusting. I squeeze it into like a little bit of water and take it really fast, and then I drink water, and then it just makes everything stay and get used rather than just running through you.
Yeah, but again, if you are a kapha, which also has stagnant, so there's already probably too much fluids in the body with water retention, then the salt wouldn't be so great for you. So just the coconut water and the lime would be great, and maybe add a pinch of like a grated ginger, because ginger is pungent, no? So it's very helpful for stagnation. No? But for the other two doshas, definitely add a pinch of salt if you feel like you are severely dehydrated.
Nice. So, what are 3 Ayurvedic routines that people can implement for their health, general wellness?
Gosh, okay. So we've already spoken about one, but I want to go deep into it. So tongue scraping, no? So as I mentioned, so what happens, the body's so magical that overnight it's kind of detoxifying itself, no? So while you're resting, it's also going through a detox process, no? So what normally happens is in this detox process, the toxins that have accumulated in the digestive system have to exit somewhere, and they appear on your tongue. No? So this is why in Ayurveda we say one of the first things you do in the morning is tongue scrape. No? And you'll notice that, so a tongue scrape is just like a U-shaped device with like either copper or like stainless steel. I recommend stainless steel. So you just place it on the back of your tongue and you just scrape it towards the tip of your tongue. No? So, and you'll notice, depending on what you've been eating the day before, or the days leading to when you start doing it, you'll notice this kind of like creamy texture to it. No, sometimes it can be a little bit more yellow. Sometimes it can be like I don't know, like cottage cheese or ricotta or something like that. No, but it's got this like creaminess to it, and this, you're just pulling the toxins out of the body. So this is a really great way to start. No, so then you just brush your teeth, then you do your normal like your dental hygiene. And then what you do is you can do coconut pulling, which is just, as I mentioned, pure coconut, cold press, organic coconut oil. As I mentioned, Guru Nanda has a good one, which is has like mint added to it. So you just swish that around as you're probably like putting on the kettle to make your warm water for the morning. No? So then you spit it out, and please spit that out onto like a trash basket or outside, because I have previously clogged my bathroom sink. So just make sure you do that. Then you can just rinse your mouth with a bit of salt water, warm salt water, just gets the rest of it out. So what this coconut oil pulling is doing is really getting rid of just the bad bacteria, because if you use the blue liquid, which I won't mention the name, then you're just stripping the good and the bad bacteria from the mouth. So the coconut oil is just ensuring that you're stripping the bad bacteria from your mouth. Then you do your warm salty water rinse. Then you drink your warm water throughout the morning. So whether it's lime, whether it's a pinch of salt or turmeric, whatever it is. So just as long as it's a warm drink. So the warm drink acts as kind of like a detoxifier as well. So that's getting rid of toxins in the body. And the warmness is actually really amazing, because it's like think about your kitchen sink. If it's clogged up, you're not going to put cold icy water, right? And a lot of us tend to go for coffee or a cold green smoothie in the beginning. No? So we want to stop doing that. So we want to like clean like the bathroom, like the kitchen sink, with warmness, no? Just to kind of get the bowel movements as well going. No? And we always want to have something warm in the morning. So that's kind of like a morning kind of routine. And in the evening, you can do tongue scraping if you want to, but that's not necessary. You just do your regular just dental hygiene. No? But keeping your day to like having breakfast at the same time, lunch at the same time, and dinner at the same time is another Ayurvedic practice that we all recommend, because that's the digestive system getting used to a routine. No? Because if you're having breakfast one day at 6 and then you're not having breakfast and then you're having it at 9, the digestive system gets a little bit confused. No? So the digestive system will work with you if you are working in a routine. No? And obviously hydration is very important. And in Ayurveda, we love warm cooked meals as opposed to like cold meals. No, so we want to have easy to digest so we want to have easy to digest meals throughout the day is what I'm trying to say. No, and make sure we're chewing our food properly, ladies. You have no idea how much like alleviation I have had with my clients just with gas and bloating just by chewing food. No, so if there's a lot of work happening in the mouth, it means that it's less for the digestive system. No, so the less the digestive system has to do, the better, because digestion takes about 80% of your energy. So yeah.
So when you talk about warm liquids, that remind me something. In Chinese medicine, they do not like cold liquids at all. It's just like, do not have it. Everything needs to be warm, especially anywhere near when you're going to eat. And they recommend don't even try to like have any liquids with food unless you're choking, just have it just in case. But I mean, that's so opposite to American culture when everything is ice cold and you're constantly drinking, but nobody's ever hydrated. We're just like drinking and not getting hydrated. It's so insane. And I know that Europeans make fun of Americans because they always have these big things of water and they're always thirsty. And Europeans are like, what's wrong with your water? What's going on here?
Absolutely. And, I grew up in Australia, and, when you go to a restaurant, what's the first thing they put down in front of you? Like, after you've taken your order is a big, tall glass of icy. And I'm always like, ooh, like my whole system just wants to shut down. No? So yeah, just give it a go. Give warmth a go. So traditional Chinese medicine actually comes from Ayurveda, so they both follow a very similar practice of warmth. No, even when you are on your cycle, they say that your feet should never be cold. No, and what I normally love to do is have a ginger bath, like foot bath, during my cycle. No, so that's very nourishing, very warm. No, so even when you in the afternoons, for example, I live in a very cold, windy area. I know it's very vata here. No, so they always tell you to cover your kidneys, no? So you don't want to have any coldness in the kidneys. So warmth is definitely what we favor in Ayurveda, and as I know, traditional Chinese medicine. So that's why sometimes I cringe when people are doing like cold baths or ice baths. I'm always like, oh, God, if you're a woman menstruating and you're doing that, like, wow. And we've known that these kind of things are very good if you are a pitta, for example, too much excess fire. But these kind of things have only been tested on men. Like studies have not shown that, cold baths or ice baths are very good for women. So I don't know, just putting that one there just in case your audience members are very
100%. I 100% agree with the ice baths. They're not for women. Maybe after menopause, maybe if you lean hot, fine. But like for most women, no, absolutely not. And in fact, I don't even like any cold foods like the week before and during my periods. Like I won't even have ice water. I'll try to have just tea, even though I hate it. It's miserable. I want the ice water, but I just won't have it. Because if you have cold foods after, it makes the cramps happen and all that stuff. It just makes it so much worse for you.
Well, coldness is contraction, no? And we don't want contraction in our bodies, no? So yeah, I always recommend my clients, please do not have anything cold. And it's amazing, like especially with my vata clients, so too much air element in the body, who have, and they're mostly drawn, like vata people, straight up and down, very slim, very drawn to like doing fruit juice cleansers and having cold smoothies and my Buddha bowls and whatever else. And I'm like, just try it, just give it a go. And it's amazing, like, wow, like I'm having bowel movements every day now. And of course, because all the other foods you were having were like cold, rough and dry, which is exactly what you are. No, we want to do the opposite, always going the opposite. And so vata, we want to go warm, pitta, we want to go cold, and then kapha, we want to go like pungent, more heating.
Do you find that people are attracted to the opposite of what they need to be doing?
In some cases, yeah, but there's a saying in Ayurveda, like attracts like, and opposites balance, no? So vatas, they tend to love like aerial yoga and doing, like tapping into 5D and doing all these things which are creating more air, no? And pittas, for example, they love going to do like F45 and going like HIIT training and this and, fire, no? And then kaphas also love their stagnation, just chilling at home, watching Netflix, no? So we always need to be doing the opposite, no? So vatas, more warm, pitta, cooling, and kapha, more pungent.
Yes. So I have a lot of friends that are more like the earth element. They're more like chill, relax, and they will lose weight like crazy when they do high intensity, whatever. And since I'm always like a go type person, if I do high intensity thing, I gain weight. But if I just chill and walk, I lose weight. So it's like so opposite.
Exactly. Even the way we talk, like a vata person will talk like this at like 100 miles an hour, and you're like, whoa, like I can't, wow. Now, because they have so many things going on, they need to get them all at the same time, no? Where, a pitta person might have more sharp language, more straight to the point, like there's no beating around the bush, as we say in Australia. And then kaphas like talk to you, like they're really... No. Holding the space. No. So if you are a vata and pitta and a kapha is like that, you can either find it like, wow, she's so soothing the way she talks, or you can find it really irritating. So yeah.
I can't help it. Okay. All right. So I wanted to know what your thoughts on, I think it's called hyperchloris acid. It's like a type of chlorine, but it's not like damaging to the skin, and they sell it to like spray it for like calming the skin when you have rosacea and stuff. And it also, you can use it on your eyes, like spray it on your eyes to prevent like eye infections if you feel like it's coming. It's like completely safe for like everywhere, even in your eyes. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I have heard it, and some of my clients actually do use it and they've had great results with it, and then some of my clients have not. So it just really depends on individual basis. Now, so for me, I will always go back to rose water and aloe vera. So those it. But I have heard of it, and like I said, some clients have had great results with it, and some have irritated the skin a little bit more. No, so yeah.
And what about the Uria lotions that they have for rosacea? What are your thoughts on those?
Again, some of my clients have had great results with that, and some others. So it's so rosacea is just like very individualized as well. No, like for some people it can be very beneficial, and for others not so much. I don't recommend anything that I personally haven't tested on myself. And as I mentioned, I live in the Sacred Valley, like in the middle of nowhere, so I don't have access to these things. I would love to give them a go, but yeah. So like I said, I mainly make my products or get locally sourced products from here, from the area. But yeah, I cannot really comment as I haven't tried it on myself.
No worries. I know this is another separate topic and a bigger topic, but do you have any tips for people with hormonal acne?
Yeah, again, no, look at a very like low inflammatory diet as well. No, stress levels again. No, and actually one thing that we didn't talk about, which is actually very, very important, is the benefits of sleep. No, so if you're a pitta person, more than likely your logo or your slang or what you're saying would be like, oh, I'll sleep when I die, no, because I just want to go and get this and I have this, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm doing this, no. But really there's so many benefits on sleep and what it does, no. So right now that we're all kind of a little bit obsessed with our devices, some of us take it to bed, so we need to kind of really focus on sleep, because there's just so much goodness happening. The brain, just rests, the detoxification process, the rejuvenation aspect of it as well. So we really need to start looking at sleep as one of the key pillars in our health, because in Ayurveda we say that sleep is actually more important than diet and exercise combined. So focus more on sleep, ladies.
No, I believe it. I believe it. I went through a phase where I was sleeping like 10 hours a night. And then I found a recent study that said women, especially when they're menstruating, need to sleep 9 to 10 hours. We're not men. All this previous studies, of course, were done on men, and men are on a 24-hour clock. We're on a 28 to 35 day clock. So we're just not the same. We need more stuff is going on.
Yeah. And because in Ayurveda, everything is specialized as well to that particular individual. Like one of the first questions that I ask my clients is like, when you wake up, are you feeling energized, ready to go? Or do you feel like sluggish and lethargic? Because that's a key indicator. No? Because some people can do really well with 5 hours of sleep. No? Some can do well with 6, with 7. No? But to me, the measure of good sleep is like, how are you up in the morning? If you're telling me that you're waking up like lethargic, no energy, and could go for another 10 hours of sleep, then it's not about the numbers of the hours of sleep, that we've had. It's about like the quality of it. No? So what I normally get my clients to do is like get all the electronics out of your room, make it just like a sanctuary, so there's nothing stimulating in there. There's no TVs, no radios, no phones, no nothing in there, so make it a sanctuary. And the temperature also is a great conversation. We don't want it too hot as well, so we want it to get the temperature correctly. We don't want to have too many things in a room, so distractions. So we want to create our room to be a sanctuary. So not a place where you're watching TV and eating and entertaining and everything else. So I believe, and I get my clients to do, the bedroom is for sleeping and connecting with your partner, and that is it.
Agreed. And one tip that I want to give for falling asleep, because I have a hard time sometimes falling asleep, is I'll take a very hot Epsom salt bath. Very hot. And then afterwards, because you heat up your body so much, it has to cool itself down. This was something I heard from Huberman Lab podcast, that it makes it you cool yourself down so much that you get deeper into sleep, and it so works. So very hot, Epsom salt just for extra relaxation to chill. And then
Yep.
your body will cool yourself down and you'll just be in deep sleep. So nice.
Yeah, definitely. Try the ginger foot bath, or do you like the first maybe 3 days of your cycle? Because that's also very heating as well. But one thing that I would love to add to that is in Ayurveda, we obviously love like tonics. No? So one night tonic that you can do is a plant-based milk. If you can digest cow's milk, go for it. So plant-based milk, we can add a bit of cinnamon in there, a bit of ginger, and then some nutmeg. Nutmeg has this property of helping you go to sleep. So, and also if you can also try ashwagandha, which is another Ayurvedic herb that is very great to like kind of calm the nervous system and helps you sleep. Obviously, try a little bit. If if it has any side effects, don't continue to use it. But that's a really great tonic. So milk, some spices, and then ashwagandha.
I'm going to try that one. So I have heard some controversy about ashwagandha. So what are your thoughts on it?
Again, it's very individualized. Like for me, it works. It really helps me like when I have times where I can't sleep. And then I've had a client who is very pitta, and she tried it and it just produced way too much heat for her. So you've got to be really, careful with anything. And sometimes we're like, oh, it's just a herb. No, but herbs are very potent. They have a lot of properties. So you're just, and sometimes we tend to think that more is better. And I keep banging my head against the wall when I just say, start off with 1/4 of a teaspoon and then work your way up. And then some people are like 1/2 a teaspoon and it didn't work. And I'm like, how much did you have? And they're like 1/2. And I'm like, 1/4. Everything is about starting small, seeing how it feels in the body. And it's about connecting to the body, Like this lady was very connected. She said it produced heat. I noticed that my tongue went a little bit red. I noticed that I was getting flushed. Okay, do not continue to use that, So, but for some people who are very vata, for example, who are already cool or already, kind of running with too much wind in the body, ashwagandha is very grounding. It works, But so I understand the controversial side of ashwagandha, but like with any herb, try it. It's not like a one-size-fits-all approach.
Okay, excellent. So tell us about your free 45-minute call to help someone identify their dosha, and how does that work?
Yeah, so you can jump on my website, AmayraMorales.com, and I'm happy to connect with anybody. If this has resonated with you at all and you're like wondering like, wow, I'd love to like find out a little bit more about my particular dosha. So you can jump on a call with me and I can assess and just give you a bit of like, where you are, give you some recommendations of like, you can start implementing like pretty much straight away. This is kind of my service to people in case that this has resonated with them. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about Ayurveda because it really has helped me. So I guess once you start to find out a little bit about your dosha and doshas in general, you also have this knowledge of understanding your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your cousin, and you're like, oh, I know why she's always like, off with the fairies, like she's got distracted by a butterfly. She's a vata dosha. I know why she's so like a go-getter leader. Okay, she's got this pitta energy. And I'm like, oh, okay, I know why Kathy is, a little bit more stagnant, a little bit more chilled. She's kapha, So it's not just about understanding yourself. It's about understanding other people around you.
Okay, so I've thought of people. Now I can tell them. Yeah. Perfect.
Exactly.
Crazy. So, what are your like most active social media platforms?
I would say Facebook. I was trying to get my head around being on Instagram more often, but yeah, Facebook is definitely where I'm at. Amayra Morales. I also have a private Facebook group. You can join there, and I talk about holistic health for glowing skin, because glowing skin for me is something that I'm very passionate about, because it, Ayurveda really helped me with my skin. When I was banging my head against the wall in Sydney, nobody else was able to offer me, and now I'm like, oh, now I see the connection between the gut and the skin. So yeah.
Yeah. And is there anything else you would like to leave the audience with before we go?
I guess for me, and I notice like, because I mainly work with professional women, and sometimes we just think that the body is just going to do its thing and it's going to magically heal, So for me, it's like listen to the whispers of the universe. If something doesn't feel right, tap into it. Don't let it accumulate like me, where I ended up in hospital. No? So start to connect with the body, listen to the whispers of the universe, and if something doesn't feel right, look into it further. No? And if you feel like you're not getting answers from your doctor, then just know that there are different healing modalities out there that will definitely help you, and it never just comes down to, oops, it's genetics. Oops, your blood tests look fine. Oops, well, it's just bad luck. No, there is always a solution, whether it's traditional Chinese medicine, whether it's Ayurveda, whatever it is. I'm just saying that modern medicine is not just it. I'll just leave it at that. I think people understand what I'm saying.
Yes, it's not the end all be all. There's other ways. So, Amayra, thank you so much for being with us today. And I will put all of your information in the show notes for everyone to go and check out. Thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Namaste.